Good afternoon. Welcome to our Chamber YP Luncheon. Today we have the pleasure of having Gretchen Brown, CEO and President at Stonehill Franciscan here in Dubuque, joining us. I'll introduce her here in a little bit. First, I want to take a quick minute to run through our sponsors, our ultimate sponsors: Diamond Joe Casino, Holiday Inn, Hotel Julian Dubuque, IBM, Q Casino, Dubuque Bank and Trust, Midwest One, Telegraph Herald, Medical Associates Clinic and Health Plans. We also have our silver sponsors: Cottingham and Butler, Green State Credit Union, Kunkel and Associates, Dupaco, IIW, Collins Credit Union, Cartograph, Dutrack Credit Union, McGraw-Hill, Platinum Supplemental, Tyson's, John Deere Dubuque Works, Grand River Center, Forge Social, Five Flags, and Fidelity Bank. So thank you to our sponsors. We appreciate everything with that. Real quick, I wanted to just give you guys a heads up. My wife is now happy that my quarantine beard and mustache are gone. She told me that if I just took a look at what Barry looked like prior to his haircut, I'd understand what I look like to her. So, plus with Gretchen, I didn't want to show up with a mustache. I like Gretchen too much to do that to her. So, we're excited for Gretchen to talk with us. She's going to talk with us today about ageism, which is a unique topic and actually a great topic with our YP community. So we look forward to that. I do have some exciting news, and I'll let Gretchen share more, but she is a new grandmother to a baby boy, so I'll let her talk about that. But without further ado, Gretchen Brown, she is a fantastic, bubbly personality. Gotten to know her a little bit over the last few years, and she's a chamber board member as well. And I'm really excited to hear what she has to say. And please do know that your lines are muted, and we'll use the chat feature on the side if you do have any questions. So without further ado, let's welcome Gretchen Brown, CEO of Stonehill Franciscan here in Dubuque.
Thank you, Scott. Even though I know we've gotten to know each other over the years, you're still a better golfer. I don't think I like that as much, but that's okay. I still need to keep my day job. Before I get started on the PowerPoint, I think it's really interesting to talk about the topic of ageism. And I think that a lot of people don't take the time to even understand what that even means. When I tell you, when you think of me, Scott introduced me as working at Stonehill Franciscan Services. When I say to you, hi, I'm Gretchen and I work in senior living. I work in long-term care. I work in memory care. I work for the elderly. I work for assisted living. Usually the response I get is, oh, bless your heart. How do you do it? That's so depressing. Oh, what a calling that is. I wondered if that's any of your perceptions. I really wish this was live because I could see your faces a little bit. But versus if I say to you, hi, I'm a nurse in pediatrics. Most people go, oh, that's so wonderful. Or I'm a nurse in the ER. Oh, wow, you serve a really critical role. Or I work in the OR. Whoa, boy, I don't know how you do that. You know, seeing that, that's tough stuff. Or I work in neurosurgery. But you say you work in senior living. There's that automatic connotation with that that's a depressing kind of, oh gosh, old people, and what does that mean? So I'm going to talk with you a little bit today about that whole factor of ageism. Justine, if you want to go to just the first slide, just the title slide, please. So Leading Age Iowa, or Leading Age National, that is our organization for nonprofit senior living communities, senior living healthcare, adult daycare services. They're an advocacy group, and many of us belong to them. We're thousands, tens of thousands strong across the United States. They do nothing but want to advocate for seniors and elder care and what all those pieces mean. This whole piece of ageism over the last probably 2 years has become one of their primary initiatives. When you think about what that means for them, they are wanting to change the perception of older adults being a problem to our society, a problem to housing, a problem to reimbursement, a problem to our economics, not serving a purpose, if you will, not giving back to society any longer because they're elder. Change that to everyone, despite of age, in spite of age, excuse me, needs to have the right to live a vital and engaged life regardless of age. And that goes from birth to whatever, 110, whatever that final age is for all of us. So this initiative with them is really, really important. But what I want to say to you is I'm going to only talk to you for about 15 to 20 minutes. I know you're trying to hold your applause. This was supposed to be about 40, 45 minutes, but not being in person, it's really kind of tough to do some of the interactive things. I'm only going to speak to you for 15 to 20 minutes about ageism, but I hope that what you continue to think about for a long time to come is how you can help stop ageism. So if you think of ageism, that's merely a prejudice. But before we go there, think about what the only thing that everyone in this universe, every human, every animal, every cellular piece, or whatever you want to call it, the only thing we have in common is that every one of us age. We have a common denominator that doesn't differentiate us at any point in our lives. We all are aging. So you think about the otherisms, other religions, other genders, other races. We've got a lot of otherisms in our lives, but the one otherism we don't have is ageism. It affects all of us. And I think if we do anything today, as we look at, getting older starts at birth. You don't get to be born and then say, okay, I'm going to stop at age 5. Why is it that we look forward to aging, until we're 21 and can have a beer legally? Or until we're 30? And then everything after that is down the hill? Man, I'll tell you, I hope when I turned 30, that was 31 years ago, I was only, I hope, a third of the way through my life. To think that everything after the 1/3 point is downhill is really kind of sad. So as we think about it, where do we go from here? When I asked the question in my, when Olivia asked me to send in kind of my summary of what I talk about today, I said, I wanted each of you to turn to each other and say, I'm whatever age you are. Do you say that with a sense of joy and a sense of pride? Or do you go, oh God, for me, I'm 61. You're never going to hear me say, oh God, I'm 61. What it's pitiful to be 61. You're going to hear me say nothing, but I'm 61 and I am so happy to be 61. So this whole thing is to talk about being older is part of life. And until we really embrace that and love on it, it's going to be one thing that's going to be necessary to change the whole concept of ageism. So once you start paying attention to ageism, and it does cut both ways, younger and older, once you start paying attention, you really realize it's everywhere. So Justine, if you just go to the next slide, and you can go pretty quick through number 2. So how does the definition define ageism? I'm waiting for my slide to change.
It's loading, I promise.
Oh, you're fine. And you can just go to slide 3, Justine. Thank you. Thank you. So it's pretty straightforward, but this is actually in the dictionary. So ageism is that discrimination against persons of a certain age group. And as I said, it cuts 2 ways, and we'll talk about that in a minute. It's also a tendency to regard an older person as debilitated, unworthy of attention, or unsuitable for employment. So when we talk about ageism being a common denominator amongst all of us, when you think about that, if you are someone who has this prejudice of ageism, you're actually prejudiced against yourself. Interesting concept to think about. You can go to the next slide, Justine. So ageism affects people of all ages. Like I said, it cuts both ways. I've heard this about, think of the different generations. I've heard about millennials, okay? I don't know how many of you are millennials. I'm one that doesn't define people by age. But if you're a millennial, there's people out there that think you have a very poor work ethic, need to have your hand held during wherever you work, and are people who expect to kind of get constant praise no matter how much praise you may deserve. How does that make you, if you fall into that age group, I'm going to make an assumption here that those of you, especially in this young professional group of the Chamber of Commerce, are already extremely motivated individuals that have amazing work ethics and don't need their hand held. But how does that make you feel when that gets generalized as millennials? That should never define us. I, on the other hand, as an older adult, don't appreciate being generalized as a baby boomer who, as I get older, may or may not contribute as much to society or may not have as much purpose. So I think having an appreciation of not generalizing each other is really, really critical right now. You look at people in senior living, and I'm just going to call it older adult communities. Call it retirement, I don't care. It's not like everybody's being put out to, pasture. But whatever, we tend to, I bet some of you may say, oh, all the people that live at Stonehill are alike, meaning they're all elders. Well, what that says to me is you're generalizing 4 decades of people that lived over 4 centuries, and they aren't the same. What would that feel like if someone generalized 4 decades for those in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s? It's real easy for us to see the differences there, but it's not so easy for us to see it once we get past that 50 point or 60 point. It's considered old. On my personal journey, I was a director of nursing by the time I was 30 years old, and that was in an acute care setting in a hospital. I can't tell you the number of times that when someone said I need to talk to the director of nursing, I think what they expected was a 50 or 60-year-old that had all this experience, because if you were going to be in that kind of a job, man, you better have, years under your belt. Well, I had 10 years, as pretty solid years of experience. And by the way, I had talents to support it. But how many times did I hear somebody say, "You're the director of nursing"? Only because I was younger. They didn't have my resume, they didn't know who I was, but only because I was younger did I hear that. I'm not sure if any of you have experienced the same thing. On the flip side of that, I turned 61 this year, and I am so thankful. To be quite frank, what is the alternative? I would rather not be dead. I've got a new grandbaby that I'm having fun with this week. I've got 2 others. This is a ball. I'm having the best time of my life. But to be like critical, or to be like almost hiding the fact that, I'm 61, I say that to my friends when I had my birthday, this is so great. Yeah, I'm turning 61. I get comments like, how could you be so happy to be turning another year older? Again, dead, older, you pick. I pick older. When you think about the other piece of that is, how many times do I get told, man, for 61, you look great? What the hell's that supposed to mean? I don't know what it looks like to be 61. And quite frankly, I've earned every wrinkle I got, and I think they're pretty darn beautiful. So what does that mean to say you look great to be 40? You look great to be whatever? I'm not sure what we're trying to tell each other with that, but to generalize generations, to label us based on that age is really, to me, it's just insulting in a large place, because really what defines each one of us should be our personality, our energy, our motivation, our talents, our kindness, our experience, our wisdom, our effort, and just overall, how much love do we exuberate to others? So let's stop putting people in a nutshell of what generation they are, what age they are, and start looking at that person for really who they are. And I think that's a lesson that all generations need to learn, because it's quick to judge. You can go to the next slide and actually go to the following slide as well. And like I said, we're all aging, right? So you can identify ageism when you see it. You can keep flipping slides, Justine. It's in the greeting card aisle. You can go right here. So happy birthday. Oh no, you're old. There's a lot of jokes about this, but I'll tell you, the shame and fear about being older has created markets for the anti-aging creams. Wrinkles are ugly. Youth is the gold standard, even though we all age. Just think about that. We ourselves promote markets that defy the very thing that is our common denominator as a human race. That's something that I think could cause me to pause anymore about what I choose to support as we move things forward. You can go to the next slide, Justine. It's in the words we use, and then you can follow that up to the next slide. So I'm having a senior moment. Any of you guilty of saying that? I know I am. And I have to kind of catch myself because it's become a little bit too much of a habit, but it was a habit when I was 40 or 30. If I forgot something, I was having a senior moment. So what does that look like to you? Because I don't know about you, but in high school, I lost my car keys quite a few times. So in high school, what was I having? A junior moment? Food for thought. You can go on to the next slide, Justine. It's in advertising. And then the next slide. Look at this picture, an old bag you'll actually love. And I tell you, I pulled this from the Leading Age website, and I noticed that it actually has a typo. The old bag you'll actually love. So sorry about that. I didn't catch that, thinking it was a slide I pulled from their presentation. So when you look at what this says to people, an old bag, again, wrinkles are ugly. Some of you are probably going, oh God, let's change the screen. But I think it's just important to see what advertising does to kind of say you're no longer pretty as you age. Next slide. So research, there's all sorts of research, that tells us that ageism has a very powerful impact at the individual level. Why is it that difficulties, that when we become more unable to do things physically, or I may need something, maybe I need a walker, maybe I need a cane, maybe I don't need anything, but I just need to walk slower. I could have a respiratory illness, I could have a whole lot of things, but why is it that those things, the difficulties, turn us basically into problem people? Think about an older person who sits down in a chair that is really low to the ground, too low, and they try to get out of that chair. And because of their age, somebody looks and says, oh gosh, probably just have weaker muscles in their legs, or maybe a balance issue, they'll never get out of there, versus jumping to the conclusion that it's a low chair. That would be hard to get out of. If you see a teenager in a kindergarten's chair, you don't sit there and bemoan the fact that, dang, his legs are just too huge to get out of that chair. It's a teenager getting out of a chair that's too small. But yet, they're both aging. Why the difference in perspective and perceptions? Why is youth the golden standard? Why should not everyone have a vital, engaged life, regardless of age? Next slide. So what research also shows is that older people with a positive age bias are 44% more likely to recover from severe disability. In other words, guys, how we think about ourselves matters. Being older should not be something we dread. That's not healthy. Being older, we shouldn't have this picture of ourselves out there of being depressed and dying because we're aging. When you were 30, if you are 30, are you really looking to 35 that it's just going to continue to get worse? I hope that you're looking at the best years of my life are yet to come, and you don't have a limit on when that best to come happens for you. So I think it's really interesting that when I think of senior living, you may have a different way of seeing it because you've not been exposed to it. And I think exposure is the key, that we really start understanding things about what is it we're talking about. When I talk about Stonehill and I talk about other communities I've been in, there was one community I was in, and this is only 5 years ago, or pardon me, about 7 years ago now. And the average age in senior living communities, from independent, assisted, to skilled, to all the different components, is 84. That's a national statistic. Independent living. We had 3 weddings at our campus of residents meeting residents that were very, very happy to tell you about their honeymoon. It was a wonderful thing. Now, I bet some of you are probably cringing, going, oh God, honeymoon, I don't even want to visualize 280, oh my God. No, what's the thing is, I love this because it is still showing the vibrancy of life, no matter where and at what level, at what age you are. We also had times when People say, well, my God, the minute I hit like I'm 80 years old, I'm going to have to be in a nursing home. I'd like you guys to all understand, only 4% of the entire population over the age of 80 requires any type of skilled nursing care in a setting such as Stonehill. We think hundreds of thousands are going to have to be there, and it's a misnomer. Many are living quite independently and quite vibrantly, and by the way, are contributing to society. Next slide. The other research shows that elders with positive self-perceptions of aging live 7.5 years longer than elders with a less positive self-perception. I just want to read a little bit of what I noted when I was researching this myself. They call it a U-curve of happiness. And actually, as you age, you get happier. You're very happy as a child. You're not as happy in your midlife. And then it U's back up, and you're very happy when you're going into your last several decades of life, if you will. It says we reliably grow happier regardless of circumstances after 40. Older adults are less prone than younger adults to unhappiness about things they couldn't change. The measures of success and failure, they change how you measure success and failure as you get older. Unmet aspirations are painfully felt in midlife, but beneficially abandoned and felt with less regret during older age. There's an increased feeling of calm and gratitude. I will tell you, with every century that I have under my belt, I have become more grateful with each one. I have become much more just relaxed. I am more comfortable in my own skin. I love myself more. I'm not critical of myself just because of my looks or whatever. I also don't hang around negative people. I am not about to waste my time on someone who's going to just ick my wow or suck the energy out of the room. I'll take the positive who are enjoying life like I plan to do and are doing. I'm comfortable with just doing my best. And I'm also very comfortable in saying I'm very blessed with the things that I have. So I leave you that with just food for thought as we go into some of the other slides. Next slide, Justine. What we also don't always realize is how ageism affects or inhibits workforce recruitment and retention. Think about the judgments that I talked to you about when I said when I was the DON at the age of 30. Some of you may be in leadership capacity roles that are something you would never dreamed you would be at this time in your career. And I'm being very to the point about at this time in your career. I'm not saying at this age that you are. I think that's very limiting to say I can only do this until I'm this old. But we have people that judge that. You know, sometimes experience becomes liability, meaning if I'm experienced, I'm older, and therefore for some companies, that's a liability. For me, I've had people say, you may try to get another job at, the age of 55. Man, they're going to kind of know you only really have, God, maybe 10 years, Gretchen, to really, contribute anything to the organization, or God forbid you're over 60. Think about the message that says to me, I got 4 years. And I don't mean anything to people or to companies. That's crazy. No different than if you look at what's happening in the Silicon Valley. You have 20-year-olds that are doing Botox and hair transplants before they go to interviews just to show how young they really are. 20-year-olds. Think about what that's going to look like down the food chain. Very interesting when we look at what the judgment. So ageism and workforce and how we all judge people. Again, what's the resume? Where are the talents? Where is their ambition? What are they motivated to do? What do they bring it to the table as a person, not as a Gen X, baby boomer, millennial, whatever that is. So being aware of that, I think, is incredibly important because it truly is everywhere. The next slide, Justine. So we have to work at changing the language. When you look at the term elderly, I'm just thinking of I think of some of the very bad terms that we use to describe seniors, but talking to them as more of older persons, not labeling them as elderly, an older person, an elder, which is very respectful when you think about it, and something our culture doesn't do near as well as others, or an older adult. A facility, this is some of the senior living stuff. We used to call ourselves the facilities. How institutional does that sound? Versus naming the organization, Stonehill Community. That's what we are. We're a community of older adults. We are not a old-fashioned nursing home, an old folks home. That's what they used to be called. I mean, that's incredibly disheartening to me to think that we've come from there, but I'm very happy to know we're here now. I hope so. Working on it. But just to even speak to as the Stonehill Health Center, not the Stonehill Nursing Home, getting rid of some of the old language. And we need to change the language for everybody at all age groups because there are those isms throughout. So last slide, Justine. So as I close on this, I just want to leave you with some thoughts. Getting older does not make life harder. Ageism does. Having female anatomy does not make living life as a woman be harder. Sexism does. Loving somebody of the same sex does not make the life harder. Homophobia does. I personally stopped saying I'm 60 years young. I used to think that was a great way to greet someone. Oh, happy birthday. How young are you? Very proud to ask them. What year is this for you to celebrate? Totally different. I also stopped saying I got a bad left knee. And I used to say, oh, I got a bad left knee. Mine, it's just arthritis from being 60. You know what? My right knee's 60 years old too, and it's just fine. So I stopped contributing things like that. So it's in how I talk about myself, and it's how you talk about yourself. We can stop ageism. We just need to show how we all want to be able to celebrate the ability to adapt and grow throughout life, regardless of what adapting and growing looks like. So isms are caused by culture, but culture is fluid. Look at what we've done to change gay rights, women's rights over many years of the past. I don't think anyone would have ever seen that. I know my grandmother would have never thought that that was going to be something to see women where we are today. And even 10 years ago, gay rights were not where they are today. So make the world a better place to grow old. Longevity is here to stay. So be bolder and claim older. I'm happy to be able to talk to you today. I hope I left you with some food for thought. I'm happy to take any questions, but thank you. And I wish you all to stay well, stay healthy, and be yourself regardless of age. Say it loud, say it proud, whatever your age is. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Gretchen. I've got a question here for you. Can you tell us about the exciting new projects going on your campus? Also, there's a two-part, so we'll start with that one.
Okay, I sure can. Thanks for asking. Yes, when I came to Stonehill about 5 years ago, we did a master site planning process at that time. And we recognized that first off, we needed to update the rooms within the health center. We still had some semi-private rooms, shared bathrooms, and things like that. And really, there had not been any major renovations to that building in probably 40 years. So the renovations that are going on at the main building in the health center we've already changed all the rooms on second floor. First floor was already all private rooms with private baths, making it much more home-like and less institutional looking. It looks beautiful. Second floor looks the same now with private rooms, private baths, and we're moving that up to third floor. The new addition, we recognize that we did not have the assisted living memory care as a level of service for us. So we are adding 24 assisted living apartments. We needed additional traditional assisted living added because we were at 100% occupancy and we were really having to turn people away. But the assisted living memory care, we're adding 14 apartments as a designated memory care support unit that will be secured, but also having really specialized staff with specialized programming, as well as we're doing a lot of updates to the general areas of a CC Village, which is our independent and assisted living. We're enlarging the dining room almost 3 times its size, adding a sun porch, really expanding the commons areas, the exercise area, and doing a lot of neat things like that. So we're due to have those completions done by the probably by December or January, just coming up this time, and we'll be opening those new service lines up and showing our new commons areas with the CC Village. And then our next step is to work on an outreach building that will include an expansion of our outpatient therapy. That'll start once we have room for another construction zone, but people are really excited about it.
Wonderful. Second part to that question, despite the challenges, what have the best parts of COVID-19 been at Stonehill?
It has been a challenging time. We are very blessed that right now we have not had any positive cases. And that speaks to the best part of this is I was already very proud of the staff that work for and with Stonehill. And I can't even begin to express my gratitude to this staff who have had to step up ways that we've never even thought would ever be expected. With all of the different just adaptations to daily operations, we have close to 200 residents just in the health center. We're the largest single site outside of the VA in Marshallton in the state of Iowa. So when something like that gets in your building, it's scary to think what could happen with almost 200 people. So to think that dining services to not have gatherings in the dining rooms of greater than 6 people, where dining rooms typically had 20 to 30, we've had to serve people in their rooms respectively. They can come out on their specific units, but only with social distancing, no visitors. So think about what that has meant for the staff to just step up. I mean, we've already been their families in so many ways, but the Facebook and all the things with technology to keep connected with families, and that has been incredible. And just the compliance with infection control and personal protective equipment when you're doing some very difficult interventions with residents, the staff have just done a tremendous job. Because to be quite honest, if people think of our environments as being the places you're going to get COVID, we're probably the environments where you're most protected from it. Our residents don't bring this in. The people that visited or the staff or the vendors would. So we've got to be real protective of that. So I think the brightest moment of all this is to see that teamwork that I already knew was there, and the level of commitment of the staff. It's just blown out. I mean, it's just made me just look at this and go, wow, the potential. I mean, we've just done so much, and I'm just so grateful and so thankful for everyone who's been there and has seen this through. And hopefully it'll be sooner than later that we really can take a deep breath, because we know it's just knocking at our door.
Excellent. Question from Mr. Barry Gentry. If ageism reared its ugly head during a work promotion or interview conversation, how would you address that?
Wow. It'd be interesting to know how somebody would bring that up. I mean, to me, it would be no different than a racism comment, or if you feel that you're really being discriminated based on age. I mean, I'm a pretty bold individual. If I felt that was happening, I would probably start touting my own talents and make it real clear what a qualified candidate I was and try to veer it off that. But if it needed to be directly approached, I mean, I'd be real comfortable saying, I feel like you're looking at me by my age and not listening or looking at what my qualifications are. I'd put it out there bold and, like I usually am.
Love that about you. Another question from Anna Johnson with Forge Social. She says, do you have any advice for young professionals who sometimes feel undervalued or dismissed just because they are perceived as too young to give valuable insight?
I think it's a great question. And it is, this does cut both ways. When we started looking at this from a senior point of view, or an older adult, it is very clear that, I've seen that happen when someone says, wow, that person's awfully young to be in that role, or, whatever stupid things they say. I think it really starts with the education. I mean, there's people that don't even know what the word ageism means. And my thought is that get that discussion, get that conversation going. So when something like that does happen, you have a foundation of what to speak to. You start making people in your organization aware of this ageism, and what it means. And by the way, I'm happy to come talk to any of your senior leadership or whoever it is that may need to have their little culture shock done. You know, I can help with that. But I think it's a matter of making sure people are aware, because then you can start saying comments like, wow, this kind of feels like ageism. I don't think we're looking at this from a talent point of view or an experience point of view. I think we're overly focused on age, and what does that have to do with this? I go back to generalizing seniors that are 4 decades different of, you know, experiences and what, you know, what their history is and what their talents and all those pieces are. So I think talking about it and laying the foundation that this isn't okay means that that'll help with kind of pulling the curtain back on that as you move forward.
Excellent. I don't see any other questions in the chat, so I thank you and I turn it over to Scott.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot, Gretchen. We really appreciate it. If you guys have not been to Stonehill's campus, you should go check it out sometime. It's a beautiful place. I don't know if they're letting people in right now, but just the grounds and everything, it's a beautiful place. So we appreciate all your insight on ageism. We look forward to the new projects that you have there. We'll let you get back to your new grandson, and tell Tom hi for me. And everybody, next month we'll have Comedy Bar Kyle. So he comes to us from the new Comedy Bar down in the Millward district. So thanks for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again next month, and everybody have a great day.
All right, thank you.